I'd like to call to order the city council meeting for Monday, August 18th, 2025. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perform roll call at this time. Councilor Benson,
Present.
Councilor Johnson,
Present.
Councilor DeWall.
Present.
Mayor Ward is also in attendance. Please let the minutes reflect Councilor Peterson is excused from tonight's meeting. All others in attendance, including Administrator Rich, Attorney Hanka, Administrative Assistant Mizuko, Finance Director Brunfeld, and the Auditor, Rory. Oh, your mic's on.
Mike.
Your mic's on. There you go. Looking for a motion to approve the pre-agenda meeting minutes for Monday, August 4th, 2025.
So moved.
Councilor Benson made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Sent by Councilor Johnson. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Looking for a motion to approve the city council meeting minutes for Monday, August 4th, 2025.
I'll
go
move
ahead.
that.
Councilor Benson made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Sent by Councilor DeWall. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Looking for a motion to approve tonight's agenda. I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Sent by Councilor Johnson. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Benson.
thank you. Under unfinished business, 5C, just a blight ordinance update.
Under 5, there is no 5C.
Well, we could make a 5C.
You want to add a 5C?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Blight ordinance update.
Yes, please.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Brings us to comments and suggestions from the citizens present. The public comment and suggestion period of the meeting is when the city council offers a time for everyone in attendance or watching from home to address the city council. Once we move on from the public comment and suggestion period of the meeting, members of the public will no longer be allowed to address the city council unless the mayor acknowledges you. As a general rule, the council will listen to all comments but are not required to comment on or respond to any comments made by speakers. If you'd like to address city council during the public comment and suggestion period of the meeting, please come forward to the podium or dial 218-628-6268. Before you begin, please state your name and address for the meeting minutes. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Anyone addressing the city council will be prohibited from using obscene, profane, or threatening language or boisterous conduct that disrupts the meeting or security of the public. Is there anyone at this time that is interested in participating in the public comment suggestion period of the meeting? If so, please come forward to the podium or dial 218-628-6268. We'll give that about a minute. Hearing none, we'll move on. Looking for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda. Before making that motion, I'd like to pull 5B, and Councilor Benson was adding 5C, blight ordinance update. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? I'll make that motion with those
Second.
additions. Seconded by Councilor Johnson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Oppose? Motion passes. Brings us to 5B, 840 Second Street driveway. So this has been an outstanding issue now for the last few meetings, few years, quite frankly. I know we did have a plan to fix the 840 Second Street driveway. I think that plan was, I know that plan was denied by the homeowner. What would council like to do with 840 Second Street? I know there's lengthy conversation in our pre-agenda meeting today. Different options.
I think we should go back to our original plan of what we offered them, and also say that if he wants to sit down and talk about it, that let's set up an appointment and do it.
Okay. My recommendation on that, Counselor, as discussed, I think we should limit that meeting to a couple counselors, so it can take place, privately, so it's not an open forum.
Yep.
Because it could turn into a negotiation type of setting, and I don't want to do that here. But I would agree with you that we have a current offer out there. I think council was in favor of that at one time, and I don't think there's any discussion to change that offer at the current time, so. Does council want Administrator Rich to send an email letting the homeowner know council has an offer out there, that's what it is, and to your point, if he is dissatisfied with that, he can set up a meeting with a couple of us and we can discuss it in length. Does that work for council?
In my opinion, it's not just Administrator Rich, it should be all of us that either sign it or have our names on there.
Well, right, and I'm okay if she says this is council's decision. It was discussed tonight, and this is what council has determined, that, I think that's exactly how it has to be said, but. Councilor Benson, Councilor DeWall, any discussion on any of that?
Mr. Mayor, I concur with what you had to say, along with Councilor Johnson.
Thank you.
That goes along with my thinking as well.
Good.
Mr. Mayor, I would support the same.
Thank you. Administrator Rich, you okay with that? Sending that email?
And just to clarify, is that the last offer that we had sent them of fixing the 3 areas?
In my opinion, since we're there, we can keep it that way. And if it is denied, then maybe we get into a different conversation during that meeting. Councilor Benson.
Would that be the same agreement that both parties agreed to originally? Slightly different.
It would be an improvement from the original agreement that the homeowner had with
The city.
the city.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Let's put Attorney Hanka's name on there too, because then we can come out with the big guns.
I think council's good for now.
Bold.
Any other discussion? Councilor Johnson, was that a motion to do that?
Yeah.
Is there a second to that motion? I'll second that motion. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Brings us to 5C, Blight Ordinance Update. Councilor Benson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering if the attorney had an update for us.
Yes, Councilor Benson, as you're aware, there is a mostly finalized draft of the blight ordinance. There were some requested changes from council, I believe maybe 2 meetings ago. My understanding is that those are in process, but I will follow up the attorney at my office who's working to finalize that.
Good. Thank you.
Any other discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll move to 6A under new business, 2024 audit presentation and acceptance. Whitfley. Are you using this or no?
No, I don't need to unless you'd like me
I was just wondering if I needed to move.
to. No. I've been told you all have electronic copies. So, or a few printed ones. Nice.
Can you like try?
I'll just pull up here anyway, quick, it just take me a second.
Check, check, check. All right. All right, I will try to use page numbers as I'm going through this to make it easier for everyone. I'm going to, when I reference a page number, it's going to be the actual page number on the bottom of the page, just for, so those of you who have electronic copies, I will not be using the PDF, just to try to, for those who are using paper copies, we'll try to keep it consistent. But yeah, my name is Zach Sharp. I'm with Whiffley, who is the auditors for the city, and today we'll be going over the 2024 audit presentation. As you can see, the document is 88 pages in length. I'm not going to go through it page by page, otherwise we'd be here for a lot longer than everyone wants to be here. So what I am going to do is I'll go through the opinions on the reports. I'm going to go through some of the notes, and then I will scan through each, or I will go through the statements, and then I will scan through the notes, just kind of briefly clarifying what each of them are without diving too deeply into them, and then we'll talk about some of the findings at the end of the report as well. So try to keep it high level, but stick to the important things to summarize everything. So I will start on page 2. For you, those of you in the PDF, it is page 5 of the PDF. This is basically essentially what you guys contract us to do. This is our opinion on the auditor's report, or this is the auditor's report. So this actually, normally I say this looks relatively similar from year to year. We actually do have a change this year. If you were to look at this report in prior years, you would notice that we would be giving 2 opinions. One, which was an unmodified opinion, and one, which was a qualified opinion. This year, we only have unmodified opinion, which is essentially a clean bill of health. So the reason for the qualified opinion in the past, in last year's report, was there was some information that was omitted. Essentially, it was known that it was omitted, but it was around the statewide volunteer firefighters plan. So there's some pension information that gets disclosed as part of these financial statements. You'll see it later in the report that the state didn't provide the necessary information and disclosures to be able to put that in this report last year. And now this year, since you guys were in the report, or were in the plan for multiple years, they provided that information, and that is now included in here. So therefore, that qualified opinion is no longer in the report, and everything is unmodified, which I said is, as before, is a clean opinion. Everything we believe in here to be correct, materially correct. In the bottom of the report, there's 2 other things under the emphasis of matter. You'll see that there's 2 headings: change in accounting principle and correction of errors, which we'll talk about in a little bit more depth later on. But the first I'll touch on here, accounting principle. This was the first year that GASB, which is the government accounting rules, number 101, related to compensated absences, was implemented in 2024. Like I said, we'll talk about that later, but I just wanted to point that off the top so that to note that that is something that is new this year. Correction of error, we also did do a restatement to last year, again, for in order to include that pension asset that was omitted in the prior year. We had to do a restatement of last year's balances as well, so you'll see that in the report as well.
Excuse me.
Yep,
So you were referring to a page earlier,
yep.
and you said there were numbers at the bottom of the page?
Page 2 at the bottom of the page.
So not the numbers on the screen, but something else? Because I do not have numbers, what I'm looking at.
Okay.
Unless I'm looking at,
Move that over a little bit.
okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm
Off
glad
screen.
it's good to get it out of the way at the beginning. Make sure I don't want to go through the whole thing and have you be lost.
Nope, I'm happy now.
All right, good. So that was a lot of stuff I just talked about. We were just on page 2. That was all on page 2, so we didn't go any further than that. But a lot of information on that first page, as I said. So now I will jump forward. The rest of the page is just some of the language that goes into the auditor's report. We'll talk about some of the findings later. Next up, the next section of the report begins with page 5. If you're in the electronic version, it would be PDF number 9. This, I think it's about 6-7 pages worth, is essentially a summary kind of the statements themselves. It has bullet points about some of the statements and numbers that we'll talk about, and just a good kind of general information here. I'm not going to go through it too much in depth, but that's where you'll find kind of a summary. If someone wanted to just read this pages, it would be a good summary of the statements themselves, because we'll talk about the numbers that are specifically in there. So I'm going to skip over it in general, but that's what it's there, and that's why it's there. So we're going to go all the way now to page 12. So it's PDF page 17. So pages 12, 13, and pages 12 and 13 are what we call the government-wide financial statements. These are essentially put together and encapsulate everything in the city with accounting rules. So we use GAAP and then the GASB accounting standards as well to put these together. This includes all things long-term. This is fixed assets. This is outstanding debt. This is things that wouldn't necessarily be reflected in the individual funds when we talk about your general fund, your specific debt service funds, your specific construction funds, kind of the day-to-day ins and outs. This adds another layer on top of that. So this is presented, I kind of say to every time I do these meetings, this is more for the accountants in the group. This is how things have to be presented. And I'll touch on a couple numbers here, but this kind of encapsulates everything that there is accounting wise, and the things that you guys are probably more interested in is probably at the fund level. But I will note a couple of the line items on here on page 12. The second to the bottom line there is total net position. This is essentially the city's bottom line. You'll see that they're of the columns, governmental activities and business type activities. Governmental is all of your general funds, includes your the debt funds, the construction funds, basically your non-water, sewer, liquor funds. So the business type funds are your water, sewer, liquor funds. But you'll see net position basically is 28 million. Again, that's not a cash balance. You can see a couple lines above it, net investment in capital assets. About half of that is just the city's investment in capital assets, such as, the infrastructure, the buildings, the water sewer lines, those sorts of things. So 28 million seems like a hefty number, but when you put it into context, it's less so. But I just wanted to point that out because that's probably the one number, total net position, that I'll talk about on the government-wide financial statements. We'll talk about the individual funds themselves as we move along. Similarly, on the following page, page 13, page 18 on the electronic version. The previous page was kind of a balance sheet. This is essentially the government-wide profit loss, statement of activities is its technical term in the government accounting world. This is a breakdown, all revenues, expenses, and then you'll see sort of the bottom section there is the section to point out the most. Net position is what we just talked about on the previous statement. Some of those line items and the revenues and expenses overall. Again, I'll talk about it more on the fund level, because that's more not interesting. But so the next few pages, pages 14, 15, 16, 17. 14 is essentially your fund level, government fund level balance sheet. This is broken down. Your general fund is always going to be on this statement on the left, and then your other major funds are also listed here. Your other major funds are 2 of your bond funds, 2018 and 2023, and then 2 of your construction funds, Second Street projects, and then your miscellaneous construction fund as well. All the other funds are grouped into the non-major governmental fund column, which we'll touch on briefly at the very end. You can see all the funds that are encapsulated in that. So, total assets, total liabilities, total fund balance. Probably the items to point out here would be the fund balance. So if you look at, again, the second line from the bottom on this page, total fund balances / deficits. Your general fund, there on the left, in the left-hand column, you'll see that there's about $5.4 million in fund balance in your general fund as of the end of the year, with about 2.17 of that being unassigned fund balance. So that's essentially fund balance that's unrestricted, unassigned, that can be spent, budgeted freely by you guys here at the council. So the other fund balances that are in that are assigned, committed, restricted, and non-spendable. Essentially, they're different designations, meaning they're tied up in some way, not to be spent freely. That, you know, there's a footnote later that describes of what is in each of those balances. A lot of times it's funding sources where your funds are specifically designated to be spent on something specific and not whatever you guys want it to be spent on. So, general fund, if you look at some of the other funds, you'll notice there is a blank column. The 2018A just means presentation-wise, this is required to be, you'll see in 2 pages that there is some numbers, but this is essentially a non-major fund this year, and so it will show up in the back statements rather than the front statements this year. The fund balances otherwise, there's about $2 million in fund balance in the 2023 A bond fund. That will obviously be spent down over the years as you guys pay off that specific debt, but that was a recent debt issuance, and that's why that fund balance is so high, because that will get spent down over the years. All right, we'll move to page 16. So it'd be 21 on the PDF version. This is, again, fund by fund, your revenues and expenses, and then you'll get to the ending fund balances there at the bottom that we just sort of talked about. But you can see the general fund, you guys had $4.2 million in revenue, and then just a little bit more than that, closer to $4.3 million in expenditures for a net change in revenues and expenditures of about $70,000 into the negative, but that was also covered by some what we call other financing sources. So sales of property, some transferred, and then you get credit for a finance purchase, which I forget what that was. Fire truck last year, for the issuance of that as another financing source this year. Some of the other funds, that looks like, no surprise, the Second Street Projects Fund had a lot of activity in it this year, both revenue and expense wise, to spend and then transfer money out to basically get that fund balance down close to zero, slightly in the negative. But no surprises, that one was spent down last year. Now we're gonna jump forward to, I will briefly touch on page 18, which is a budget to actual of your general fund. So I talked about the middle column already, revenues and expenses. This is just sort of a nice statement to take a look at. How do we do compared to where we were budgeted? So you can see that about 342,000 in the right column there. You can see 342, about just shy of $343,000 more in revenue came in than what you had budgeted for. And then on the expenditure side, about $600,000 more was spent than what was budgeted for. It looks like most of that in some of the capital outlay, which I believe might come from that fire truck again. But that's in the bottom issuance of finance, okay. But I think the fire truck would be included in that capital outlay amount as well, yes. So,
One question.
yep,
Did, maybe Leslie, this is more for you. You know, at one time we had paid all the, did we ever get the money back in from the salt sand?
Sorry, no, the DNR fund?
The salt sand shed, there was like $500,000.
We have not received that.
So that could be partially why this is tipped on the expenditures, because we've already expended it and paid for it?
No, this is the fire truck.
The last one.
It wasn't in the budget for, I'm not saying that you guys didn't have it in your mind, but it wasn't in our capital expenditure budget.
Gotcha.
and yeah, that was 518,000. Probably, yeah, big reason for that $700 to $1,000 plus variance. But overall, bottom line wise, actual, as we said, on the revenues over expenditures, 69,000. Budgeted for $195,000 increase, which is a net negative of 264,000. Next, we'll move on to the proprietary funds. So, public utilities, sewer, liquor, and then the golf course is included in that as well. I will probably talk mostly about page, let's see, we'll do page 21. Since that's revenues and expenses, that'd be page 26 on the PDF version. So revenues, expenses, ending net position for each of these funds. You can see if we sort of go to the fifth line from the bottom, change in net position. This is essentially your net income, net loss for the year, the number you'd be most interested in. You can see that both public utilities and the sewer fund make up a big chunk of that increase this year, with $612,000 and $421,000 increases in each of those funds. Golf course contributed a little about $8,500, and then the liquor was a increase of $43,000 this year. With all those are all positive increases, and then you can see at the end the net position of all of those, that the public utilities still has about 10 million, sewer just shy of 5, and then the other remaining funds have 229 and 606,000 in ending net position as well. So overall, between the four, just shy of $16 million in net position. Again, if we go to a page previous of that, you'll see that that amount is made up over half of capital assets, to no surprise. The next couple pages are just cash flow statements. It's sort of another way to look at the year. You can see on page 20 or 22 that instead of revenue expense wise, you can see how much do we have more or less cash in those funds at the end of the year than we did last year. Third line from the bottom, you can see those values as well. Then I am going to move forward now very quickly. Starting on page 26, is the notes of the financial statements. This is where you'll find most of the information. If the numbers don't necessarily make sense just by looking at them in the various statements, this is where you find a lot of the detail behind those numbers. What I'm going to do, as I said off the top, is I'm going to say what each note is and what's in there, and then if anybody wants to read more in depth, this is where you'll find that good information. Note 1 is just a summary of all of the accounting policies. A lot of the statements contain terminology that you may or may not know what it means. As I said before, you can scroll through like, all right, these are our major funds. This is a special revenue fund. This is a capital projects fund. What does that mean? This is where you'll find it. I'm going to scroll quickly through that. That one's one of our longest notes. Has some information on the compensated absences that were new this year. Information on some of the leases, and I'm going to go all the way to page 36. Again, this is note 2. This just has some extra information. You guys are probably well aware, but if anybody, a reader of the financial statements, want to know more about what the city is invested in, the cash and investments, this is where you'll find it. Note 2 has all the information related to cash and investments. Obviously, for you guys, it's mostly your investments in the 4M fund. I know a lot of CDs are involved, so this is kind of a breakdown, a required disclosure to break down those investments. Note 3 starts on page 38 on the bottom. This is just extra information about some of the leases that you guys have, which you have a new lease receivable, I should say. So leases that you are the lessor for, and those include those 3 leases. Floor space and land for cell towers. This is just basically a breakdown of the expected inflows of that through the next however many years these leases go out to. Many years. Note 4, I'll mostly skip over, just a required disclosure of some of your receivables. Note 5 maybe is more interesting when I said, all right, here's a big chunk of our capital assets. What makes up those capital assets? This breaks it down by buildings, infrastructure, equipment, leases, those sorts of things. And if you want to break it down further, Leslie has the schedules that says what each of those assets are. Note 6, starting on page 41, long-term obligations. This is going to be a lot of your outstanding debt. You guys have 3 general obligation debts remaining that total just over $6 million left to pay those, and then you can see starting on page or on the kind of the middle to bottom of the page there, it's a summary of some of your other long-term obligations, such as that fire truck. Obviously, a portion of that was financed. Some of your other leases, and then you will notice compensated absences is on here as well. So I will talk about compensated absences. So at the beginning I said GASB 101 is new this year. What is that? So compensated absences are basically employee leave. So things such as vacation time, sick time this last year, newly implemented in the state of Minnesota, ESST. The government accounting world decided we need to change how we report this. And so they changed, basically the prior version of this said that anything that you expect to be paid, which was essentially for you guys vacation time, accrued vacation time, that was the only thing that was on the report in prior years. Now, they tweaked the terminology and included these other, like I said, sick time, ESST time, included these other items in there, and they gave a very vague explanation as expected used. And so Leslie and us had to work together. She did the brunt of the work. We checked it, and basically she had to come up with a calculation of what is all this leave time as of the end of what's the probability and expectation that it will eventually be used. So very complicated calculation that she put together, and we checked it. And essentially what that did bumped that balance way up, because I said in the past, vacation was the only one that was a liability as of the end of the year, because that was the only one that was in everybody's contracts to be paid out when they leave, based on terms of service and such. Now, if you have a sick balance as of the end of the year, and you use that sick balance on a regular basis, that gets included into the calculation. So basically, as we'll talk about in a future note, when we corrected a prior year balance, that was because of this new GASB rule, it brought down we had to change the balances from the prior year, and that's the reason for it. So I just wanted to point that out. If someone was to say, why does that balance seem larger than it has been in prior years? So moving forward, skipping through the rest of page 6, or note 6 just has some of your remaining obligations. Like I said, about $6 million left on those bonds. It breaks it down by year and future years. Information that's useful and required. Note 7 is a conduit debt obligation that you guys have that's required, again, to be disclosed. I don't have anything extra to say about it here. Interfund transactions, note 8. This is some of the accounting work between funds of like what funds owe other funds money. This is where you'll find that information. On the front of the statements, it's usually put in due to or from other funds, or advances to and from other funds. This we did a little bit of changing as well this year to get this corrected. The biggest one I would say is the advances to and from funds. The sewer and water utility funds each owe a portion on these upcoming bond payments throughout the next however many years. We basically came up with an obligation that these are the outstanding amounts that they're going to owe on future levied payments. So that's where that information is held. Note 8, continuing on the following page, is showing the transfers between funds. Note 9, I had set off the top in our general fund when I had said just over $2 million, I believe, was unassigned, and I said there's some other funds that have assigned money, or under other fund balances that have assigned money. That's non-spendable. Anything that's a prepaid expense is considered non-spendable because it's already been spent. Committed and assigned are on here as well. The city has some money set aside for committed and assigned purposes for the various line items there. Tourism on the committed side, and then more tourism in the dairy opioids, neighborhood watch, things such as that, where there's some assigned fund balance as well. Biggest one is restricted fund balance. It's the right column on the bottom of page 46. This is where you have funds that are restricted and cannot be spent on anything other than what they're required to be spent on. So things such as your sales tax proceeds have a specific purpose. Those capital project funds, anytime you guys get debt issuances, those are usually for a specific purpose, have to be spent as such. Now, starting on page 47, and then we're going to go through a lot of pages here very quickly. Note 10, defined benefit pension plans. This is information around para. I'm not going to talk about any of this. This is the city has a liability on their books for a very small percentage of the para plan that the city contributes to. The state then comes back and gives them, like I said, a very, very small percentage and of the entire plan, and you have to put that on your books. This is information regarding that. Pages and pages that they send over. It's just basically copy and pasted in from their required disclosures. And so that is going to go all the way through all the way till page 57, be page 62 in the electronic version. Similarly, I said off the top, this has a little bit more information than it would in prior years. The state volunteer firefighter retirement plan. This has, again, more information around this plan. Para plan was separate. This one is also sort of part of para, but it's a separate plan as well. Same thing. So information regarding that liability asset, this is where you'll find that information. I'm not going to talk about it because then I'll be confusing everyone here. Moving on all the way to page 61, there's a couple additional footnotes that are required around risk management and commitments to some construction projects. The bottom of page 61 is where I will sort of end on the footnote side. This is stuff that we've talked about. There were some restatements that needed to be made from last year's statements, and they come in 3 categories. You can see there's columns labeled A, B, and C. The following page notes what each of those are, but column A is what I just talked about, uncompensated absences, that extra leave. You can see in the government-wide financial statements, we essentially, about $178,000, we had to bring last year's balance down to adjust for the new accounting rules. Column B, changes in reporting entity, that's just a net wash. That's just moving numbers between the front statements and the back statements, which is major versus non-major. And then the correction of error is adding that SVF plan pension asset into this year's statements that has been previously omitted. So this is just a summary of all those restatements. And that finally gets us through the footnotes. Supplementary information, which is the following pages. Again, this is a lot more pension, para. You can read all about para if you want to fall asleep at night. And this is where you'll find all that information. Good information, if you're curious, again, required, comes directly from the state. I'm going to skip over it until we get all the way to page 72, which is page 79 on the PDF. I'm not going to point out any specific funds here, but this is just a breakdown. At the front of the statements, there was a column that said non-major, and everything was lumped together in those statements. These are all the funds that are lumped into non-major. Non-major just means they're a smaller portion, either asset, liability, expense, revenue-wise. They're a smaller portion compared to the other bigger, quote-unquote, bigger funds. This is where you'll find all the information regarding any of those specific funds, debt service funds, capital projects funds. This is where you'll find those over the following 4 pages or so. Finally, the ending reports here, beginning on page 76. One thing also, besides giving an opinion on the statements, you guys also, we're also required to report on internal controls, and then a couple following pages later on legal compliance. Those are the reports that are issued, unmodified. You'll see what the findings are. I'll skip all the way. Instead of reading the terminology in the report, I'll skip all the way to page 79. So our last 2 pages, the findings of the audit. What do we have? Nothing new. 2 findings, the same 2 findings that we've had at least for a year, especially the first one you're probably always going to have unless Leslie does a lot more work. This is probably not going to do. Yeah, unless she gets a whole staff. Essentially, this finding is financial statement presentation. What does this mean? This just means we, Wifley, help putting these statements together. In an ideal, perfect world, at big Fortune 500 companies and such, financial statements are provided to us. We audit them. At a city, especially a city this size, that's not really realistic. As she said, the entire staff, some CPAs on board, extra CPAs on board to be able to put these together. Therefore, it's technically a deficiency because we help put these statements together. I will say almost everyone that we do audit-wise has this finding in it. It's the most common finding that there is. Second finding, material audit adjustments. This just means that we made, from the first week of field work that we came out, Leslie provided us numbers. We did end up making some adjustments along the way in conjunction with Leslie's help, but those numbers and changes were significant material, and so that's why we have a material adjustments finding around some of those changes that we did make from the original values that we had. Good news to end on, the last page, you will note that there are no other findings, but you will note on the very last page that 2 findings have been corrected. So last year you had 2 Minnesota legal compliance findings, one around depositories of municipal funds, essentially uncollateralized funds. I don't remember at which financial institution, but there were some funds that were not covered by either FDIC limits or additional collateral. And then last year we also had a contract bidding finding as well, as the bidding and contracting process was not fully done correctly, as you guys are well aware from last year, and so that has been corrected. There were no findings this year. So 2 corrected findings from last year. So I just talked for too long and nobody said anything or stopped me. So hopefully that's good news. But if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out now, or once you have more time to look through the statements, reach out to Leslie, you can reach out to me, and we'll get the answers for you. But I appreciate the time.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
Mr. Mayor. On the financial statement presentation and this deficiency that's noted.
Yep.
I mean, that usually happens with almost every government organization, large or small, so really, is it that significant?
Right.
If everybody pretty much has it?
I think you could say that internally for sure. We're required to disclose, to put it as a significant deficiency, just because we help and put the statements together. It's more of a technicality. Like I said, we have to report this pretty much everywhere we go. I don't think there's anyone anymore that I work on audits for that actually puts their own statements together. So yeah, we have no concerns about it for you, but it's technically a deficiency according to accounting rules, so
Thank you.
it has to be therefore put in as a finding.
Thank you. Did council have any questions for Zach? Or Leslie? Hearing none. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Nice job on that, too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Quick question before I entertain a motion, but is council comfortable accepting this report, or would you like more time to review it?
I'm comfortable. I think the explanation was very well.
Perfect. Well, with that being said, I'll entertain a motion to approve the 2024 audit.
Second.
Councilor Johnson made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Benson. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That'll bring us to 6B, storm sewer repair bid approval, South First Avenue. So in your packet was a list of projects that were put out for bid. As you know, we are only looking at approving the South First Avenue one, as Puck approved the other projects on this list already. So we'll entertain a motion to approve the South First Avenue project area number 7.
So moved.
Councilor DeWall made the motion. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Johnson. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Brings us to 6C, Kingsbury Creek Restoration Agreement. Again, in your packet is an agreement between South St. Louis Soil and Water Conservation District for the Kingsbury Creek Resilience Project. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Councilor Benson made a motion to approve. Is there a second? I'll second that. Any further discussion? I would like to entertain the idea Administrator Rich had prior to this meeting, hosting an informational meeting regarding this project. Would council be in favor of that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Do we need a motion then on directing Administrator Rich to set up an informational meeting, or is that just something that can take place? Just take place? Okay. As long as council's good with that, we will, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. And 6D, employer retirement notice. Again, in your packet is a letter of retirement slated for October 17th, 2025 from longtime City Street Foreman Rick Lalonde, been an employee since 1988. So a very long tenured employee that the City of Proctor will be losing with a lot of valuable knowledge. Looking for a motion to accept his retirement letter.
So move.
Counselor Johnson made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Benson. Any further discussion? I will thank Rick. We got a few more months, so I'll give him the thanks at a later date because he does do a wonderful job here. So if there's no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Brings us to members' concerns. Counselor DeWalt.
I'm going to rephrase the question I asked during the audit. We have not received the funds that we got granted for the public salt building.
We have not. I have made multiple attempts to coordinate that payment with DEED, Department of Economic Development. The funding is still there. We haven't lost it, but it is a matter of coordinating with their staff. We have all the paperwork ready. We've asked to submit. We've done all of the title work that was required with it. And I just have a problem getting a response from them.
Because that,
There was an issue with.
I understand that, but I mean, now that it's done, all that money would have been out of our general to pay for, because we paid for it. So I guess want to make a mental note that we don't lose track, because that was $500,000.
Yep.
Anything further, Counselor?
No.
Thank you. Counselor Johnson.
I just want to say it was a good hoghead, everything, the whole thing, and that we should probably thank, you know, our street department and police department and city administrator and who was the bald-headed guy that was here?
Jared Hinks.
Jared Hinks, for what they did and did a nice job, and it was good for the community.
Absolutely. Thank you. Counselor Benson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I echo what Counselor Johnson said. I was going to say the same thing. And if there were accommodations going out, certainly the city staff, the police, the street department, help make this one of the better ones. I think almost a benchmark for someone who's been involved with it since the beginning. There was some new innovations, and I'm optimistic for the future. And as always, the fireworks were wonderful. On another note, legislative agenda-wise, I think our next meeting will be in September. Deadlines are coming up quick. I think two of the other items that I had missed at the last meeting, one was inclusion into the IRRB. Certainly is a long shot, but at least they will know that, you know, we still consider it a concern, and since we were created to serve the iron mining industry, certainly I think it should be at least discussed on the legislative part. Also, I don't know if we should be involved at all, but certainly up for discussion is the school's looking at monies for a regional career technical center. And I think they received like 170,000. They're down to maybe 35, 40,000 now before their funding runs out. And, you know, is it worthwhile to have it located in Proctor or not? Certainly an item up for discussion. And I think for the moment, oh, and for the last one, Lakehead Harvest Reunion also is this week, and certainly part of the Proctor community, and a lot of fun. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council.
Thank you, Counselor. I'll echo your two sentiments there. Thanks to everyone involved. There's too many people to name, but they put on a great Hoghead Festival. The added events, the event on Tuesday night down at the playground was pretty cool. So a lot of good things that came about, even though the weather didn't cooperate. I still think it was a very successful event. The MIC meeting will be held here on this Wednesday, August 20th at 6 o'clock. And I've been invited to welcome the staff at Proctor Schools back to school on August 27th, so I'll be doing a little welcome back for them that day. Congratulations to Senator Hochschild, who's been honored as a 2025 Legislator of Distinction by the League of Minnesota Cities. That's a big award, so congrats to him. He's doing fine work down there. And then our next City Council meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 2nd due to Labor Day. So hope everyone has a fun, safe Labor Day weekend, and we'll see you on September 2nd. Administrator Rich, did you have anything?
I do not, thank you.
Attorney Hanka?
Nothing from me, Mr. Mayor, thanks.
Thank you. With that being said, I'll entertain a motion to pay the bills in the amount of $181,499.92. I'll make a motion to pay the bills. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Counselor Johnson. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion passes. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Counselor DeWall made a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? I'll second that. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 Oppose? Motion passes. Thank you.